present here. So today our speaker session will be with Mr. Aashish Beergi. He's a social entrepreneur himself, and he'll be speaking on the same topic. He's a co-founder. He's a co-founder of Mash Project, a parent platform for you to volunteer for non-profit social enterprises and other social purpose organizations. He has also spearheaded many youth events like Rolex Leadership Forum and TEDx talks, and also he has been an official Indian delegate to many notable international conferences, including UNESCO Youth Forum in Paris and France. So we are really honored to have you here, sir. Thank you for accepting our invitation. You may start. The stage is all yours, sir.
All right, thanks. I hope all of you could hear me clear and my audio video is fine.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Okay, first of all, thank you for having me. Very excited to, talk to all of you today. I know it's a Saturday morning, so it's quite encouraging to see that you're interested in this topic of social entrepreneurship, and you're eager to learn more, right? So. I run an organization called MASH Project Foundation. I don't know how many of you have heard of MASH, but I'll touch upon MASH a little bit today. But what I'm more going to talk about is my personal journey in the first few minutes of my talk, and then talk about the whole landscape of opportunities that are available if you wish to become a social entrepreneur, right? So we'll keep it more interactive. I think I have about an hour, a little less than an hour. So first 20-30 minutes is, I think, I won't take more than 20 to 25 minutes to talk, but then I'll keep more towards the later half of this session to get your questions, your thoughts, anything that you would like to share. If you're looking for any idea that you're already thinking and you want to discuss that. So I think that would be a better way to do today's session. And of course, if there is anyone you would like to, any one of you would like to connect later on, happy to take it on one-on-one over email or LinkedIn, right? Great. Okay, before I talk about my own journey, I would like to understand from you, like, how many of you who are here today are aware of social entrepreneurship? At least you've heard the term, you have somewhat idea what social entrepreneurship is. So if you can use the chat window and just, just say yes, we know. So I'll get some idea that out of what 35 people who are here today, how many of you have heard of this, know of this? That's great. Yeah, just put like yes. Even if it's no, it's fine. Just get a sense of it. So I won't touch about the basics. I would rather go more into more finer topics, for finer nuances topics of the social entrepreneurship. Wonderful. I think most of you do understand about social entrepreneurship, right? So the whole social entrepreneurship, has been existing ever since, since we've heard of great social change makers and people who've been creating impact. In the last few years, the whole entrepreneurship aspect has been added because entrepreneurship as a wider umbrella has different facets to it, so social entrepreneurship becomes where you're looking at not just making money, but also creating impact. So a very thin line difference between a social and a non-social, because a lot of people keep questioning, whether a certain enterprise, a certain venture is social or not, right? So some of the definitions that exist out there, which are sort of widely followed, boils down to the fact that in the very first place, as a founder, as somebody who has a vision for starting an enterprise, starting an initiative, starting a venture, what's your purpose, right? You're looking to solve a problem. All the enterprises are, in the first place solving a problem. That's why they exist. That's why people pay for it. That's why it's solving a problem. But whether that problem has been unaddressed by the mainstream businesses, right? So there is a impact element, that this work that we are going to do is going to impact those people or those things, like an environment, or it's going to impact a certain section of society, or somebody who is probably not touched by mainstream businesses, or government efforts has not been enough, or existing non-NGO civil society organizations that are working on it, they are not enough to solve that problem, right? That's there. And then in the very first place, what's the purpose, right? What intent you have started your vision. So if that is something that is creating an impact, then it's called a social enterprise, right? Not by the definition whether it's a for-profit, whether it's a not-for-profit, whether it's a hybrid organization. I think those are just I would say models of enterprises, or you would say they are sort of business models, or some people choose to do non-profit because it's better for them in that way. Some people choose to do for profit. Some, in our case, we are a hybrid, and I'm going to talk more about it, right? So yeah, if you have more questions about this, keep it with you for now. So in the later half, we'll take more questions about financial models of social enterprise, right? Uh, um, and in the last few years, like I was telling, there is a lot of work that is happening in this space, a lot of work. Just to give you an example, I would say there is so much capital that is moving now. There is so much of finance that is moving towards social, to support social enterprises, right? Ever especially after COVID has happened, there has been a greater focus as social enterprises, because one aspect is, of course, healthcare is badly hit. So then people are focusing on creating those ventures that are looking at creating better healthcare. There is a huge social income divide that is happening. There's a huge social implications of it. There's a bigger income divide that's going to happen. So there's a greater section of population is going to face even further challenges, right? So what are those enterprises which are solving those problems, right? So that's why I'm saying that there is a lot of finance capital. When the money moves to, then the whole ecosystem develops, right? So policies come in place, incubators, accelerators, as we call them, ecosystem catalysts, right? People who help build that ecosystem, right? They come into picture. Then media is talking about it. Media helps shape perceptions. The moment you hear stories of uh, you know billionaires, unicorns making, everybody is like, oh wow, entrepreneurship is cool. That's why you need to celebrate social entrepreneurship. So people say, oh, these people are not just creating X amount of money, but they're also creating, impact to billion lives. So more and more people are drawn towards this. There is greater awareness that is created there, right? So yes, that's what I'm saying. The ecosystem is kind of being developing. If you are keen, okay, by the way, this would be my second question, but if you're keen to become a social entrepreneur, I think there has never been a better time in the history to do it now, because the world needs it more than ever, to have people come with entrepreneurial ideas, innovative ideas, to come and solve problems which are not being solved by other actors of a society. And there is enough support which is available, like I told you, from the ecosystem side, from the finance side, in terms of the media, and also people ready to sort of support that idea, so from the demand and supply side, from the demand side. So then you got to, there's a big room for good, on the supply side, for good social entrepreneurs with some great ideas, right? So yes, so my second question is that how many of you today, already have an idea, or are inspired to do something on this lines, on becoming a social entrepreneur or working for a social enterprise, now or later at some point in your life? So if you just can put it in chat box, I'm interested, or I'm already doing something, or I'm exploring, just to get a sense whether, as an audience, whether this is something that interests you. I'm sure that you are interested for sure. That's why you're open on, you're available on a Saturday morning and do attending the session. But yeah, tell me, like, either you're exploring, you want to do, or you're already doing. Anybody who's doing right now, who would say, oh, I'm already working on an idea, I'm doing something. Oh, wonderful. Rajkosh, you're working. Wonderful. Great. So at some point, I definitely would love to hear from you as well. Okay, great. So far, whosoever is put in there with others, keep thinking about this during this talk. That is there a problem that you see around yourself? Do you think this can be solved in a certain way? And then by end of this talk, I will ask again, where are you now from? I want to do is like, yes, I really want to do, or the ones who are like, wasn't sure but are now keen to do. So whether we'll see whether how far we've gotten in next 45 minutes. Okay, all right. So coming back to my story, so I started with my journey in school, and when I was in my high school, by volunteering with different nonprofits. And the way it kind of like got started was, I was I think in my ninth grade or eighth grade at that point. And I have my school used to, so I'm brought up in Delhi. So my school used to do once in a year sort of a short, awareness drive around our locality where the school was, around plastic waste, around, planting trees on World Environment Day, like around those kind of drives. So I kind of liked that activity. Every year we will do that. But except for that one day, there's nothing much that was happening, right? So I was drawn by this whole idea of volunteering at some point, right? Occasionally, sometimes with my parents, I've come from a Sikh family, so we would go to Gurdwara, do community service. So I would enjoy doing that, right? But I wanted to do more of that, right? So one fine day, I was reading a newspaper, and I read this article which talked about uh, youth volunteering, like young people, school students who can go volunteer with causes, right? And I really liked about it. So there were a few organizations mentioned there. So I googled up, found contact of one of them, called their office up, right? uh, so this is a youth organization based in Delhi, and they take students from school on, short a volunteering opportunity, like small short of volunteering uh, uh, internships kind of a thing. So you go, they first train you, and then you teach a community and all of that, right? So I called them up, I went to their office, and this was, oh, I was doing all by myself just because I was so interested in this. I knew that my parents may or may not even if they like it, they're, kind of busy with their own things, and this particular office was quite far. So I still remember that I took an auto myself. I went there, and back then we didn't have like in Delhi, metros and other things. So I went to this office, and I loved there was this lady who welcomed me, told them about the work they do, and I loved that whole interaction. So I was like, wow, this is something that I was looking for, right? So so yeah, I started volunteering with them. Every weekend I would go. We had this program going on where we were doing some teaching with a slum community. And what I enjoyed a lot was, through those interactions, I got to learn a lot about. I built a sense of how should I say, a sense of being empathetic, a sense of acknowledging how much privilege we had. And earlier you get all of that in life, I think it's a huge asset, right? So I highly recommend volunteering. If you haven't done this, if you're already doing this, it's brilliant. You should explore more of that, do more of that, go to communities which you haven't. So challenge yourself to sort of like, uh, 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 kind of get more challenging experience, right? But very interestingly, and in my whole journey, I would want you to leave with two or three key learnings, which when I reflect back now, that I had in my own journey, right? So number one was, you know, it's very important in early in your life, be you want to be an entrepreneur, be you whatever you want to do in life, is to truly find what you love to do, you know. Like Steve Jobs said in one of his very famous speeches at Stanford commencement address, that to do great work, you need to love what you do. Easier said than done, but it's possible to find what you love to do just by the way of throwing yourself in doing different experiences. All of us kind of know what interests us. It's easy to say, oh wow, I heard about this, my friend is doing, I like to do this. I read about this, I like to do it. And with so much of access we have now with internet, YouTubes and whatnots of the world, it's easy to figure out our interest, right? But at the same time, there's information overload. So it's important that we narrow pick two three given our other commitments and bandwidth, but explore them. When I say explore them, do a short internship with them. Somebody's working, talk to them, read more about that particular thing. Could be anything. I'm not saying being an entrepreneur, could be anything that you want to do. I don't know, most of you, if you're in your what year of your college right now, if you can just also put that in chat box, first year, second year, third year, whatever. And also what course in a branch, sort of just give me some ideas about today's audience. But why I'm asking that is that it would really help you in terms of finding your interest by the time you are getting in towards your final leg of your college, right? So Karthikeya say, okay, third year. I believe quite a few of you would be from third year, right? So you have one more year to go, right? Which is good. You've already done a large part of your college, but then at any point in time, if you feel like, oh, this is what I'm doing is not exciting. Not from a steady point of view, because you already have your branch, but I think there is always a room to transition or have your branch, but also explore other interests, right? So by the time you're in final year, you know, oh, this one thing or two thing interests me the most, and this is where I want to go into depth, right? But coming into my own experience, so then I was in like ninth grade. So I kept volunteering over weekends and then longer durations during my summer break, winter break. And for first 1 or 2 years, you know, met a lot of interesting people. So in that process, my one of my big learning when I look back is definitely to love what you do. And that by would happen when you kind of, you know, put yourself in challenging situations, you know, try new things. So I figured out that, oh, I have interest and love for doing something which adds value to society, which kind of creates an impact, which helps solve a certain problem, right? So first few months, about a year and a half, I was with one organization. Then I got myself interested more on the climate change side. There were a lot of youth activism that was happening around climate change. This was way back, but now also, like when you hear stories like Greta Thunberg, right? So those kind of young people doing amazing stuff, which really got me excited and interested, right? So I would be part of a lot of these activism work. We would go do a lot of cleanup exercises. We would do workshops at you know, schools, and like more I would say low income communities and those kind of places, right? So while I was doing this, you know, I met somebody who was one of my project leaders and one of the senior ladies from the organization, and she told me about this program by British Council called Global Change Makers, which brings about 60 young people, young change makers, all under the age of 18 that point, for a week-long training and summit in London. And she said, oh, you know, they have a call for applications, Ashish, you know, you should apply for this. So I went online. I really like what they do. And you know, they, as a part of the application, you have to answer a few questions, write an essay, and make a short video, right? So when I applied for it, you know, a couple of days later, I got a rejection, you know, say, oh, we had an overwhelming response. I think at some point, all of us go through that process where we don't get what we want and we couldn't get through, and it's kind of disheartening, right? I was pretty sad at that point, but I took it up as a challenge and I said, oh, I didn't make it, it's fine, but I would want to figure out how can I make myself better. So I apply next year again, right? Easier said than done at that point. It kind of really breaks your heart, right? And when you see and I started, you know, becoming friends with these people who had already gone, you know, thanks to Facebook, Instagram. Now Instagram wasn't there then, but Facebook thankfully was there. And I could see who's made it, you know. So there was this one girl who's made it from India. So I added her and I wrote to her, hey, this is what I do. And we had a common, some mutual friends also. So it was easy. A good part is, of, you know, the world is becoming smaller. You find mutual connections. So, you know, it's easier to reach out people now, right? So that get me a sense that, oh, she's been what I've been doing for last 2 or 3 years. She's been doing for right now 7-8 years. And she's done some very interesting work. Definitely her application would stand out to be stronger, right? So that got me some motivation. Okay, now I'm going to take my activism level up. Next year, my application should be definitely much better. So yeah, and not just because of that, but it gave me a push, a target. I was doing just for fun till this point. Now I had some, you know, motivation to do. So I was started more hands-on, started my own initiatives, made my own team. And those are my first lessons of being, having, you know, leadership experience. So another very important aspect that I would, again, it's not a lesson, but I'll talk about lessons and the skills that you gain while doing this kind of work. So empathy is one, teamwork is another one, leadership, you know, I think today more than anything else, we need to cultivate more leaders because there are much bigger problems, and we need more and more people to out there to come and say, hey, you know, we can't just wait for somebody else to come and solve this problem. I'm going to step up and solve this problem, right? And then when you take up that leadership, then you have to live up to it. You know, you have to do whatever to do to sort of deliver that, right? All of us, even in school, college, have those opportunities around you. You will see some of you might be president of your society. Some of you would be doing, you know, way back in school, you become monitors and stuff like that. Those experience help you become leader, but we should not, again, I'm saying to all of you, because I know there are a handful of those people who become monitors and presidents of the clubs. And what about the rest, 90-95% of that? That doesn't mean they can't become leaders, right? You have to lead without title. It doesn't matter whether you're a president, you're a monitor, or you are some kind of entitled Nobel laureate of the world to go there, and it's your responsibility to make a difference. If you see a problem, you take it step up without complaining that it's somebody else's problem, but I'm going to make it solve, and create a model, of course, in long term, create a model so that this problem doesn't happen. So you become leader in your own sense, and the titles and everything will follow. In my personal journey, that doesn't matter. If you do it, people see and observe you, they will come and say, hey, you deserve this, you got to do this, right? I recently did my master's. I was at NUS. I was pursuing masters in public policy. I was president of a student society and a club. First year when I joined, this club was pretty, it was loosely very handled, managed. Nothing to blame or complain, but that's how student societies are. You have the sort of onus the way you manage. But I kind of wanted it to be in a certain way. It should create certain value for the students and all. So I took that leadership up, and automatically, people themselves said, hey, why don't you become a president, right? Without me saying that, right? Anyway, that's just an example, because I know a lot of us find ourselves, oh, I contested for it, but somebody else became, so why should I do this? It's never ever the case. You are leader if you say that I'm a leader and I take responsibility for this, right? Because this impacts you more than anything else. Okay, so I'm going to fast forward because I'm also cognizant of the time. Won't take another more than 7-8 minutes, and I want to talk to you about what we do now. So if that is of some of the interest to most of you people, we'll be happy to talk more about that. So yeah, this was happening. So I went to London next year. Finally, I made it. So I was super, super happy. I think it's one of the best, most memorable moments. And then I went there. That one particular event was a very big, I would say, milestone in my journey, because, I met these 60 other young people who were similar age or even younger. Okay, I was 16 or 17 at that point, right? This is high school. I was in my final year, 12th grade, right? And all of them were doing some amazing work. Like, they were working with their governments, their initiatives are making impact at national level. So I was deeply inspired. I spent a week, I made some good friends from all over the world, and then I was super, super inspired about them. So that got really motivated me to start my own organization or my own initiative. And here was the second lesson, was that you need to spend time with like-minded people if you really want to grow yourself, right? All of us, well, especially when you're in college, we are surrounded by people who think alike, especially when you're in society. I'm sure this 30 odd people who are in this today's session, you're common, or 40, sorry. Entrepreneurship is of common interest. Social entrepreneurship is of common interest. But how can you take this up? Who are the people who can really help you take it to the next level now, right? Like one of the very famous sayings by Jim Rohn, that you're the average of 5 people you spend your most time with, right? So who are these people who are you talking to most, right? Again, one thing I would like to say is that, we are spending a lot of time with our friends and family, and this sometimes they may have a different process of thinking, they may have different ideas. So it, that's why if you see a lot of super successful people, their closest friends or their mentors or their community where they're spending more time are very similar alike people, and everybody is kind of helping or supporting each other to be like that, right? So yeah, just choose your friends wisely. Again, there's not, your friends, family can be loving and caring, but that they have a different viewpoint, so they could be misguided about what you really want, right? So yeah, think more about that. So going pretty fast, so I started my college undergrad in Delhi, and I had an idea to start with a litter free initiative. So I built a campaign around how can we make our campus litter free, segregate the waste, and the waste is sent to recycling. So, and that produce comes back to the college. So it's a circular economy model. Nothing gets littered, everything is recycled, reprocessed, comes back, right? So that got some attention, some focus. One of my friends reached out to me, say, hey, my dad is from plastic industry. They've been wanting to do something similar for as part of their CSR initiative, as a corporate social responsibility, because plastic bag was getting banned in Delhi, and they said they want to say that it's not the problem of the bag, but the problem of recycling it. If you dispose it right, if you process it right, it's fine. So what you're doing is something that they will be really interested. So would you like to meet him? I said, for sure. So they said, we are happy to fund your initiative if you can do it on a larger level. So we've gotten a whole if some of you are from Delhi or know Delhi, in center of Delhi, it's Connaught Place, which is the hub of the city and a very busy commercial area, right? So we got the whole of Connaught Place to run a year-long campaign on make Connaught Place litter free. And we got these rag pickers who are really, really, at the bottom of the pyramid of the society. The guys who are like, you may see sometimes, they're picking up bottles and stuff so they can get at least one day of meal by selling that, right? So we got them as part of this chain. We got them proper training tools, kits, and we worked with the local NGO to do that. And we started putting this messaging out there, collection and reprocessing. So this project became pretty good. We worked with the government also, municipal corporation, the local shop owners as well, right? So that was my first, I would say, experience of building a project, scaling. But there was a challenge that it was not sustainable itself. So they had a budget for 1 year, and after a year they said we can't continue. But the project had a lot of impact at all levels, from the places started looking clean, the rack pickers had a steady income, your market association guys were happy because places are clean, so their customers are happier, right? Government is happy because we are doing their job, so everybody is happy. But who's gonna pay for it after a year? Nobody knows, right? So I came up with this idea where we wanted to create a monetization model. So there's a whole for-profit business or a revenue model to this, so that becomes self-sustainable, where whatever we are selling, producing, comes back and the government buys back or somebody pays back, right? But the challenge we faced in Connaught Place was that it was not easy because there were already set of guidelines around waste where you can't buy it, because there are existing companies which are doing management of waste. So we had to move that out and all of that. But I won't go in depth the details of that, but I definitely built a model. Within 6 months, we set up another project in Chanakyapuri, which is still running. It's been over about 2012, we started 2012, 9 years. It's been running 9 years. And we are doing oil to plastic waste to oil, your kitchen and biodegradable waste to manure making, then your pellets to briquettes, and all other kinds of waste, e-waste, cardboard, paper was stored and sent for recycling. So that whole complex became India's first zero waste. And when Swachh Bharat mission was being launched in 2014, this project became like a model for a lot of other places. So we had a lot of media covering, a lot of ministers visiting, a lot of research scientists coming and seeing what is the model that's being worked upon, right? So through this experience, I realized, just like me, there are so many young people like you who are also interested to become entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs, but we lack an ecosystem, right, to support such ideas. I felt that I was really fortunate that I met the right people. I had certain ideas. There was some kind of ecosystem support that I got. Plus, I was in between, by the way, I was part of a lot of few other, these youth programs, I would say, international programs. So I went your friend was just introducing me. So I was part of a program in Russia while doing this. Then I was part of the UNESCO Youth Forum in 2013 in Paris. So all these programs really helps you to broaden your ideas, meet more like-minded people, find mentors, and so really put yourself in those challenging situations will help you to learn and grow, right? So I felt like all of this is there, but just like me, there's so many people and not everybody have access or are aware. So how do we make it more and more accessible? And that's when I started my social enterprise called MASH Project Foundation. So MASH is about ideas to bring everything together, really MASH to create greater impact, right? So what we do at MASH is three things. We help young people to really unleash themselves and become change makers, social entrepreneurs. And the way we've designed the model is young people need access to right people, they need mentorship, right guidance. They need to meet more like-minded people, like I was just talking about. So first first pillar focuses on community building. So if you are working on, let's say, an idea related to what you want to do, anything related to food wastage, right? So we'll figure out what's your idea, help you refine it, then put you in the touch with the right people who can mentor and guide you. If there are already people who are thinking about similar ideas, to help you really team up with them, right? The way we do it is we used to do a lot of events earlier, but now we're doing more online programs, and they are very well structured and formulated. So I can talk more about that. Second is build skills and capacity. So we have short programs like a day-long workshop, half a day workshop, or longer programs, which helps you get the right kind of skills to become an entrepreneur, social entrepreneur, right? From storytelling, design thinking, impact assessment, fundraising, monitoring and evaluation. We figured out what are the skills. There are both softer skills and hard skills, right? So softer, again, like I was talking about, storytelling, leadership, effective communication. Technical will be more around fundraising, monitoring and evaluation, impact assessment, things like that, right? Third is amplifying, right? So when you got there, you got to tell your stories to masses. They're gonna be fundraising happening. You need to amplify your efforts. So we have a media platform which Mash has built for itself. Plus, we partner with some of the biggest media channels at both national and international. So Your Story, Better India, Youth Kivas, Scoop Whoop, Huffington Post, Quint, so we work with all these guys to like IDR, Indian Development Review. There's some really good content out there, right? So we help work together to run campaigns and take stories of young change makers to a larger audience, right? Plus, we also work with some of the platforms which recognize efforts like awards, conferences, summits, and so on and so forth. So in a nutshell, that's what MASH does. We do a lot of work with incubators, accelerators, because they're an important part of the ecosystem. So thanks, Karthikeya, for sharing. So if you go on our LinkedIn page, first of all, please do follow us and like us. That's the best way to get organic following, right? But we do keep sharing a lot of opportunities. Our Instagram's very, very active. We're very, very active on social media. If you have questions, just drop into our DMs and we will get back to you and see how we can help you. Plus, we host a lot of master classes, open sessions that anybody can join in. But yeah, we work with a lot of a very small thing in terms of how MASH is running. What MASH's model is so we started as a non-profit organization. We wanted to work with a lot of these CSR grant making organizations, but we felt that's limiting to how we want to build it. We also wanted to self-sustain ourselves and not just be dependent on donor money, right? Because there's limit to how much you can grow. Even if not limit, donors over the period, like COVID, something like COVID happened, so then everybody's focusing more on relief work, healthcare, right? So these become lesser of priority. Like entrepreneurship is not the priority when you have something like pandemic, right? So we wanted to self-sustain ourselves. So after 3 years of building a non-profit, we built a for-profit arm, which is called MASH Impact Advisory. So both of them are sister concern, but there is something called hybrid social enterprises. One arm is non-profit, one arm is for-profit. So what we do is similar work, but we do for corporate. So capacity building on their internal processes, and how can you build more innovation models? How can you sustain your new ideas like lean methodologies, right? Then we do consulting work a lot, so with, again, corporates, large NGOs. We do a lot of work with UN agencies. So right now there's a project with UNDP that we're running. So we help them design and execute these programs. Again, a lot of work, our work revolves around youth, because we are a very youth focused organization, right? And India, honestly, we are in one of the, I know currently as pandemic, probably not the best, but as a country, we are in one of the best times, because we are a big part of our population is young people. At the same time, we are a fast growing economy. So the middle income group is growing much, much faster, right? As that happens, sort of opportunities grow, but there are also problems that comes with the society, right? So if you can identify that problem, or you feel strongly, that driven to solve that problem, you have some interesting ideas, I think it's probably one of the best times to be a social entrepreneur, right? All right. So at this, I would like to kind of stop my sharing, and then next few minutes we can, just take questions, or however you want to do. So I'll pass it back to Karthikeya. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir, for your words. Okay, so sir is going to take some questions right now. So anybody has anything, please shoot. Or you can type in the chat box if you don't want to open the mic. So, okay, sir. So before the questions come, I have one question of my own.
Sure.
So what I wanted to ask is, so basically, in conventional startups, right, the success is metric is measured by the seed funding, how much turnover that you have. But in social startups like yours, what is the measure of your success? How do you feel that? Yeah.
So thanks, Karthikeya. So for social enterprises, definitely, like I said in the beginning, what's the purpose? What's the problem you're solving, right? So let's say in Mash's case, how many young people have we impacted who become social entrepreneurs, who become change makers, start their own initiatives, or join social enterprises, and so on and so forth. So that's an important metric, right, for us. Certain social enterprises, of course, have other metrics as well. Definitely impact is very, very strong. But just like, I said, it depends on the model. So in those cases also, they would say if it's something which they have to report back to their board or to their people who've invested in them. So revenues and what's the return on that revenues becomes an important consideration to look at, right? But yeah, I would say, most it boils down to the impact that you're creating. So in the very first place, when you're starting your organization, it's important to consider how you're going to measure this impact, for whom are we solving, and it should be quantified, right? Otherwise, you can't say. Like, different metrics could be how many people we trained, then out of those trainings, how many actually started their own initiative within next 1 year, how many of those initiatives sustained, right? So these are like some metrics which are important for the kind of work we do, right? It could vary. It could really vary from enterprise to enterprise.
Okay, thank you, sir. And I got this question. After going through a couple of sessions, I have a question most social startups focus on self-sustainability, yet they fail and face difficulty scaling up. Why does it happen?
Why do they face issues with scaling up? Is that the question?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Help me understand a little bit. Like, so, like, is it
So,
a
so when
problem?
a so yeah
So,
when a so, yeah when a, so the question basically is when a startup is started, they focus on self-sustainability, but yet they fail to scale up on a big level often. Why does that happen? That's the
oh, so
question.
you're saying that organizations might be solving a problem, but why can't they scale?
Yes.
Right? Is that the question? Well,
Yes.
there could be multiple reasons. First of all, not all models are scalable. Okay, you need to understand that certain things can't be scaled so fast, that they take their own time, and that's absolutely fine. As an entrepreneur or as a founder, you have to ask yourself, what, for whom I'm solving. Let's say a certain problem is unique for a certain community, and that would take certain amount of time. Let's say, for example, you want to some a social entrepreneur wants to change a certain cultural behavior of a certain community, which might be regressive. So it's just solving a problem through education, awareness, advocacy, right? And it's going to take time. It's not going to happen in a few months. It's going to take years, right? And you want to make sure that, yes, this problem is really solved for that community before you want to replicate it to other communities, right? So one problem is definite, oh, not problem, I would say one aspect is, yes, definitely the model itself, whether it's scalable versus not scalable. Number two, when you're talking about scale, right? uh, Again, as founders, you're very passionate about the problem, so you're able to replicate and very driven to solve it, right? Whether, you know can that aspect, it's a called founders mentality, right? Can that be scaled up with the people you're hiring? Because you need more people when you're hiring, right? So whether that model itself is scalable, is it just because you're personally driven so you're able to do it, or is it like, you take to other uh, um, places as well? And that's what we see with a lot of social enterprises, right? I have a lot of interactions with people. They're amazing work they are doing, but anybody who's keen on investing in that idea venture would ask, the moment we take you out of this picture, as a founder, can we still sustain and scale this, right? I think a lot of those question marks comes there, right? Whether this can happen, can you train and pass it on to many, many more people? So it's the model that you're creating around, rather than just a founder driven thing, right? So that could be the second aspect. A third aspect is, of course, resources. I think a lot of now, I think things are changing too fast. There's more and more awareness. There are more or kind of instruments, financial instruments that are coming up. Impact investment is kind of becoming a big thing now. So people are doing mix of, venture philanthropy, where they're doing debt financing. They are doing kind of hybrid sort of financing models, where social, again, these are not for early stage. These are much for a bigger social enterprise. For smaller ones also, there are programs that I can tell you, unlimited incubator funds, a couple of, as a seed grant for social enterprise. It could be non-profit, could be for profit. Nudge Foundation, one of the big ones in India, has a program called Encore, based out of Bangalore, which supports nonprofits, right? And there are quite a few of those grants and programs that are available out there for organizations. Change Looms is a program by Prava. They have a funding for nonprofits and social enterprises, right? So again, coming back to the question about scalability is availability of resources, the kind of problem that you're doing, what kind of resources can you tap into to be able to scale up, right? And as entrepreneurs, we are only looking at problems sometime and not looking about other things, because we are so consumed and invested in solving the program that we don't look at scaling at all in the first place. And it's important that if scaling is important to you, that you have it in the first place, that okay, for first few years I'm going to restrict, I'm going to solve a problem, and then I will start scaling. So I'm going to also start researching and engaging a wider network of resource providers, investors, donors, grant makers, XYZ, whosoever that is, right? I hope that's all answers your question. Whosoever asked that question, Karthike.
Uh,
Yes,
uh,
sir. Yes, sir.
Karthikeya,
Okay.
there are some questions on the chat box.
Yeah,
If you
yeah,
can,
yeah. I saw them. I saw them.
Should I
No
read them
worries.
out?
So I'll read them for you. Okay. So, sir, Sangeeta Goswami is asking, how important do you think are the corporate social responsibility initiative, and how social enterprises can have access to those funds and generate revenue at the same time?
there's continuation for the same question. Like for plastic pollution, why can't we use Coca-Cola's CSR funds for social enterprises working on plastic pollution? It's a good model that has been suggested. So, what's your thought on that?
Yeah. So we do a lot of work around CSR, Sangeeta. So I'll tell you how it works. Okay. Um, First of all, you have to see what that particular company's CSR objectives are. Okay. So go to the company. So India has a wonderful CSR law. Okay. So large company which has a turnover of 100 crores or profit of 5 crores and above for last three cumulated years, or a market capital value of the company over 500 crores. Okay, if you are any of these three, you have to give 2% of your profits to a CSR cost, to a social cost. Okay, so that opens a big sort of a pool of money in India, right? And a lot of companies have been doing it, and even doing more than 2%. The companies like Tata Group has been doing, I don't know, much more, right? And companies, it's good for them also, because when they're doing social, they're also kind of using that as a way to brand market themselves, as ethical marketing, what we call it, right? Okay, to your point, how do we go? So go to their website. Most of the companies clearly lay down that these are our CSR objectives. Okay, so go to Coca-Cola website, see what is it for them. Let's say three things, which is important for them. Definitely, I think something around plastic would be important, because they use a lot of plastic packaging. Something around water might be important for them, and something, let's say, they are saying we are creating more economic opportunities for rural women. So women empowerment is important for us, right? So now, as a social entrepreneur, Sangeeta, if you are passionate about any of these three, let's say plastic, you mentioned about it, right? What about plastics that you are doing which you think would be might of interest to Coca-Cola, right? So let's say you would say that I'm going to reuse the plastic pet bottle, the empty plastic pet bottle, and I'm going to make some upcycle it, I'm going to recycle it, or I'm going to make oil and gas, or whatever you want to do. Like we do that, oil and gas, so I know about this. And that produce that I'm going to make out of it is can be sent back to the society, like a circular economy model, right? So it can be reused, remade into something, right? So what I want from Coca-Cola is to give me some money to set up that center at near their facility. So capital cost for that, and some money to operationalize, because as social entrepreneur, I'm ready to come up with an innovative idea which is going to make plastic bottle into some kind of, let's say, you can shred it and make it thread, and that thread can be made into some products which use fiber as a raw material, right? So, and that raw material will also be made, I'm going to employ women into this from that local community. So my idea has dual impact, which ticks the two boxes for them. Plastic is sorted, and their women empowerment is sorted. So I'm going to do capacity building of this women, how to use the technology, Plus, third, I'm going to create a market linkage around this, right? So that whatever we're producing is tied up with Amazon. People can buy. Amazon has a section, I think I'm forgetting the name, but they have an initiative for women empowerment called Saheli. That's, by the way, as a social entrepreneur, as an entrepreneur, collaboration is very, very important. That how do we bring best of everybody, right? So now Amazon is also interested because for them, women empowerment is important. So, you can talk to Amazon also this, or you can bring together. So CSR also likes to partner with each other, even if they are competitors. Sometimes Pepsi, Coca-Cola want to partner with each other and do a cause, because for both of them it's important, right? If they solve a problem of plastic waste or wastewater, they will help them to be in business, right? So they said, oh, why don't we do it together and support Sangeeta, or support many more like Sangeeta here, right? So, okay, so I hope that helps you answer your question. Is that first understand their issue, then see how it solves with your idea, and then just go and talk to and pitch them. You can find people on LinkedIn who are their CSR heads, write to them on LinkedIn, go meet them in person whenever these more events are back, in person events. So I met a lot of people who were our first supporters or CSR heads, or who've kind of helped get some projects through these conferences and events. So I can mention there are 2-3 of them. I can put it in the chat box. So one is AVPN Summit. A lot of them attend that. Then there is Sankalp Forum, which kind of brings a lot of social enterprises and investors together. Then there is India CSR Summit. And if you search CSR Summit, CSR events in India, um, you will find quite a few of those. There are quite a few international as well. And a lot of these heads come and speak there, like to meet interesting entrepreneurs, discuss ideas with them, right? And like I said, there's so much happening in the space. CSR is not the only place who's funding. There is grant, like foundations. Okay, they are big funders. Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So we got an award by Gates Foundation last year, and I know that they support a lot of initiatives. Michael and Susan Dell Foundation. These are all international. MacArthur, right? And you have to see what causes they support, right? Then there are a lot of them in India. Azim Premji Foundation, Shiv Nadar Foundation, um, 8 Chandra Foundation. So these are all philanthropic arms of individuals or private foundations who have certain causes they want to support, so they want doing it. Third route is through, like I said, intermediaries. So intermediaries like incubators, or there are companies who channelize funds for CSR. So there are 2-3 of those, right? Like there are quite a few, but I can tell you 2-3 of those. So there is Dasra is one of the big ones. I can even type these. So Dasra is one of them. Then you should look at Samita is one of them. Then there is CAF India is another one, right? So what they do is, like, they will go and talk to companies on your behalf. They will basically, they take big money from corporate. So let's say a corporate wants to put 100 crores, and they say we want to support um, you know 20 organizations. Looking at the size, somebody will get 50 crores, because their scale is big. The rest 19 would get less of the 50 crores. So you're a small starting out, so you may get just 10 lakhs, 15 lakhs to just get started, right? I'm giving an example, of course, that would vary, right? So this CAF and Dasra Samita kinds go and take big money, and then they distribute and they manage that fund for you. It's like fund manager, but for impact space, right? And then, of course, their model is that they charge the donor a certain percentage of the fee for doing that, right? And then you report your numbers and impact to them. They report to the donor. So it's like they are expert on doing this work, right? So yeah, so I'm just saying CSR is not the only place. I know it sounds very fascinating. Moment you see CSR, there's a big brand, there's a big money, but I think India is a much bigger place for other kinds of sources for funding as well. Government is, by the way, one of the biggest funders, but they do not directly fund these non-profits or social initiatives directly. Again, it has to be routed via where they would fund a bigger organization, and you can become a sub party or sublet to them. Let's say a bigger organization gets a project where they have to do capacity building program for women, for women entrepreneurs, for 10,000 of them in your community, your capacity. You can do 500 of those. So you can go and talk to them. Hey, I'm going to do 500 of those. It'll help your project, and it will definitely help me. That's what I'm saying. Collaboration is the key in the sector. And the good part is, while everybody is doing good, People are more open to collaborate. People are more open to partner with each other. They are open to ideas of working with each other, right? Which makes it a lot more enriching, I would say, experience as well, because you complement each other's strengths as well, that way. I hope that answers your question, Sangeeta. Should we take the next question? Anshu
Yeah,
has
I
a
think.
question. Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks.
how to how to deal with failure in case when we are starting with any initiative to solve any problem, but isn't getting enough support, attention, or growth.
Oh, we will deal with failure in case when we are starting with initiative to solve but not getting enough support, attention, and growth. Okay, good question, Anshu. I think a lot of us faces that problem to start with anything, not just social enterprise in life. When you're starting out, especially for the first time, everybody would be questioning you. Everybody would be like doubting what's your plan, blah blah blah. Like I said in my talk, go talk to people who have done something similar. Go talk to people who you think will support. Don't be disheartened, discouraged by, like I said, you will have an idea. You'll talk to your friends or family first. They will say, go study, go do X, Y, Z, right? And you'll feel like, what are they doing, right? So you're talking to wrong people. That's what I'm saying. You should tell your friends and family when you are very convinced about your idea, you are very confident, and you can speak with conviction. One thing I have seen, be it anything in life, right? If you are very confident about what you're doing, about anything for that matter, even sometimes there are certain personal initiatives you want to take, not work wise, but you want to try and certain something new, but you're not sure, you can't convince people around you, right? So what will get you confident is something that you should ask yourself. So can I discuss this idea with somebody who's tried and tested this? Can I discuss with a mentor, professor whom you think will guide you? Can I just read more about this, learn more about this, right? Like I was telling you about this waste management model, easier said than done. That it didn't happen like that. I spent a lot of time, over I think year and a half, to just study models, just go to events, conferences, meet these experts from this, and I've been in touch with them till this date, who on and off, even if not I'm not doing waste management, because they are senior, they've seen more of the world and they are more exposed to things, they can guide you, at different points, right? So yeah, so here's the thing, that you gotta research and learn more, be more confident about your idea, and then take baby steps towards building that, refining it, right? Everything else can happen in later. Again, just do a little bit of your environment scanning, I would call that who are these people around you who you think would not gonna support, and that might just discourage you, right? So avoid those, especially in the beginning, right? And who are the people in the environment who's going to support? If you don't have too many people who are going to support you, how can I get those people who's going to support, right? And like I said, we are in an age where the world has become really small. We are literally, we can literally access anyone in a matter of few clicks, right? And sometimes people may not get back to you if you write to them like a cold message or cold email, but that doesn't matter. There are about 7.5 billion people out there. If one person doesn't, Coca-Cola CSR head doesn't reply you, you write to Pepsi ka head, you write to Bisleri ka head, you write to goddamn whoever, 10, 20, 30, 50, 60, 100, right? There's a beautiful saying, that after many no's comes one yes, and the future of the world depends on that one yes, right? So you always got to see that when that yes might come to you, it could be in the first shot, it could be in 10, it could be in 100. Someday it will come, right? Even in personal life, right? Sometimes, you're waiting, trying a lot of things, but things don't happen your way. Don't stop there. Keep trying, keep trying till you make it happen. And it's worth it. Tell me. Um, um, it's really worth it when you really get there, right? So don't, just feel discouraged. Just feel like, oh, something didn't happen the way I had planned. There is something missing that I need to fix so that I get there, right? Like I was sharing that story about not making through that some British Council summit in the first go, right? So you got to figure out what's gonna take me to get there, right? There have been so many things in life which has not gone the way I would have wanted them, right? Sometimes I was like, oh, why this not happen, this not happen, this not happen? Like, an entrepreneurship journey is like every day you have ups and downs. Every, there you get long phases. COVID happened, a lot of our projects got hit, our funding got really shrunk, and it was pretty challenging, right? But we saw as an opportunity to do something interesting. We pivoted to a digital model, online model, started new programs. It did a campaign on COVID, which got awarded by Gates Foundation, and it was a global award that we got for it among, so that got us a lot of international coverage, and now we are recognized among some of the leading non youth organizations all over the world. So that got us but first few months were really done. So you also have to see that how do you learn from challenges and failures, and see what we can do to kind of really overcome that, right? With anything for that matter, sometimes you just need patience and persistence. One thing, I think the one third key lesson I would say, or I would say, is to be very, very persistent and very patient. So you need those two things, right? You be on it, and then you have to have that thing, okay, that I'll stay till the time that doesn't happen. Have a timeline for yourself that by this it doesn't happen, so I'll have work my option B, C, D. I'm not saying that you got to invest everything what you got into that one thing, but you got to be smart that how much time this could possibly take, right? Talk to people to figure it out how much time you think this could possibly take, right? Find smarter, faster ways to do that. So time is a currency. So faster you do it, you could do more in the remaining time. So you do better and grow better, right? But yeah, the thing is that you got to have your options, plan B, plan C in place, right? So if this doesn't work, okay, let me go third, and so on and so forth, right? All right. I hope, Anshu, that was helpful. I am also cognizant of the time. I think we're running out.
Yeah. If there are any questions at all, just ask now, and then we'll conclude the session.
I'd like to ask a question. Sir, now that you know whatever you do, is there anything you would have done differently when you were starting?
Well, that's a very good question, Rashmita. What should I have done differently when I had started? Okay. Um, I think what I would have done differently would be to be more clear about the problem that we're solving, right? When I was right out of my undergrad back then, I was very passionate and driven about just doing something for young people, because I felt right now I'm so, I relate with the problem more than maybe a few years down the line. There will be different things, different priorities. So I may or may not be so passionate about this cause what I'm doing now. So I just jumped into things and kept doing it, because you get busy with doing things, so sometimes you lose the sight that, oh, why I'm doing what I'm doing, right? So I think having a clear problem, that, oh, this is the clear problem and for whom I'm solving, and you know what's my, you need to define your vision. Let's say 3 years, 5 years, this is how it looks. As an entrepreneur, that's going to change, but what one thing I guide to a lot of young people who are starting out is be clear about the problem for whom you're solving, and define certain timelines. It will help you to also clarify that what path you're taking. During that path, of course, that kind of evolves, right? In my case, I was very driven, so we jumped into it, started taking up projects, we're doing some interesting thing which truly enjoyed, and we can see the impact of it. But it was hard to quantify it. So then when you can't really quantify it, so you don't really know whether it's helping you even achieve a problem. So there's a you feel like that you're solving a problem, but you have to answer that whether it's really solving a problem, right? Again, comes back to the question of quantification, comes back to question of impact assessment, how you monitor that, right? So I think, yeah, starting that early will help you get a lot more clarity going ahead. And I think that's something that we as an organization have started doing a lot more now, and also training many more other young people to do so. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. That was really insightful. Karthik.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess there are no more questions. So, sir, we thank you for joining us today and taking time out of your day. We really appreciate it. So, thank you for joining us, and we'll forward all the links and regarding Mash project into all the groups that we have. And yeah, thank you for joining, sir.
And we would like to reconnect with you for building up the social entrepreneurship ecosystem in our college and in northeastern India as well. So if any help or any mentorship is required for any startup from our college, we will definitely approach you, sir. Thank you for your time, sir.
Definitely. I think, yeah, we do, like I said, a lot of work with schools, colleges as well. So would be happy to know more you guys are doing. And you guys can look me up. My name is easy to find. There's just one Aashish with me with that name spelling. LinkedIn, I'm quite active there. So if anyone, if you're interested, who are already working on some ideas, need some guidance, happy to talk to you one on one, or I can put you in touch with my team. There are a lot of programs that we do for young people, so you can join them as well. Yeah, that's my LinkedIn. Thanks, Karthikeya, for sharing. Yeah, great talking to everybody, and all the best with everything. And we'll hopefully get to do more things together.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you, sir.